Science and the arts were transformed during the Renaissance by a craze for invention and experimentation. While scientists like Galileo were busy throwing cannonballs off the Leaning Tower of Pisa, composers were throwing all sorts of sounds together in ever more ambitious compositions. All this experiment and abundance had a downside. Pythagoras' original 12-note scale was beginning to fall apart at the seams under the strain of all the new sounds. The problem the old Greek philosopher had chosen to ignore, the dreaded comma, had come back to life with a vengeance. To clarify just how serious a problem this so-called comma was, we need to understand the mystery of keys. And to do that, I think I'll need a drink. Say, for example, I wanted to create a scale from a single note, the Pythagorean way. Now, this wine glass, for example, is more or less a G. Now, like different lengths of metal, different levels of wine in the glass will change the notes. So if I sip a little, it should now go higher, as indeed will I. You see now it's an A flat. And if I pour more in, it should go lower again. Here I see another G. Now, from this mother G, I can create a whole family of notes, which is called a key. So this is my key or family of G. Now, if I were to take one of the notes belonging to the family of G, say C, I could create from it a whole new family of notes. The key of C, completely different from the key of G. Indeed, all notes give birth to their own particular family or key. The problem, thanks to the disruptive influence of the comma, is that very few keys or families worked successfully together in the same piece of music. Now, up to the late Renaissance, practically all music was written in one key or another. You didn't move between them. So all instruments were carefully tuned, like these glasses, to play a particular piece in a particular key. So far, so good. But then composers started to get greedy and asked, why can't we have more than one key in a piece, or two, or three, or four? And the net result was to make tuning an absolute nightmare. The process was called tempering. A tuning system created by tempering was called a temperament. Every Tom, Dick and Heinrich across Europe had his own temperament. Chaos reigned. Notes were being pulled this way and that to accommodate the different needs of different keys. The trouble was, a tuning that worked for one piece of music sounded wrong in another. Putting instruments with different tunings together in the same piece of music was increasingly problematical. By trying manfully to cope with all the extra notes composers wanted, keyboard tuners ended up with some hideously deformed and mutated note relationships. These were known as wolf tones on account of the grim and unsavory howling of their dissonance. Lurking behind all this tempering, tuning and wolfing about lay a simple, terrifying truth waiting to be unearthed. This was the concept of an equal temperament. That is, a tuning system that divided up the octave artificially into 12 exactly equal parts. Instead of having 12 different keys with their own individual patterns of notes, like cogs belonging to different wheels that can't interlock, the idea of an equal temperament was to create a single mathematical pattern of notes. This would become the blueprint for all the keys, so they could fit together in the same piece of music. The question was, how could musicians who tuned their instruments by ear create a mathematically perfect scale? For a while, it seemed an impossible dream. But then, out of the blue, a genius burst abruptly onto the scene and changed musical history once and for all with a composition. The Big Bang actually occurred in this castle in eastern Germany, and the man behind it was none other than Johann Sebastian Bach.